لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونؤمن به ونتوكل عليه ونعوذ بالله تعالى من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلله فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن سيدنا ومولانا محمد عبده ورسوله بلغ الرسالة وأدى الأمانة ونصح الأمة وكشف الله تعالى به الأمة وبعد. قال عز وجل بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. وقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم أفضل الصيام بعد رمضان شهر الله المحرم أو كما قال صلى الله عليه وسلم. Respected brothers and elders, mothers and sisters, I don't want to put anyone in a sticky situation, but if I were to ask for a nominee for someone to stand up and tell me the 12 months of the Islamic year, if there's 100 people in a congregation, how many people do you reckon will know the answer? Anyone knows January to December, right? So if I put someone on the, let's do a test. Let's do it now, inshallah. How about that? Because we should all feel confident. Say, yeah, man, fire away, bruv. You give me a question, I'll smack double back. But I'm saying, if we put anyone on the spot and say, stand up and tell us the 12 months of the Islamic year with tartib, in order, how many of us actually know this? You'd be surprised. There are many people that don't know the months of the Islamic year. Now, these are very, very basic things. Very, very basic. I mean, even a step further, what year we are in, you know, things about Islam, very, very basic things. Perhaps a lot of people are very, very unaware. And the reason why I come to this conclusion, alhamdulillah, I don't have a TV in my house, but I came across this once. I was around a relative's house and I was watching it. And they were interviewing people and they were saying, can you tell us the 12 months of the Islamic year? And I was surprised, subhanAllah, no one knew it. I would say it's thanks to people, I don't even know that guy's name, he's a munshid, he sings nasheeds. And he did this nasheed about the 12 months of the year. Muharram, Safar, Rabiul Awwal, it's quite a catchy one as well. So people listened to that and they kind of learnt it. Unfortunately, if we're not aware of any of the months, then naturally we're not even going to be aware of the fada'il and the virtue. That's the flip side of it. We know Ramadan, and why we know Ramadan, it's not because, and this is again unfortunate, and I say this, look, not with a meaning of to try and pick holes, but for us to sit and think and say, Ya subhanallah, the guy's got a point. Why do we know Ramadan? Because we have to fast. So we have to get ourselves mentally prepared that Ramadan is the month where we do Roza in Ramadan. We have to fast in Ramadan. So for us, it's like, not that Allah forgive, we don't look forward to it, but rather we anticipate it and get ready for it. There's a difference, Allah forgive. Dhul Hijj, because obviously Dhul Hijjah, the month of Hajj, where the days of Hajj occur from 8, 9, 10, and then up to 12. Some people know of this month as well. The Islamic year, the Islamic calendar starts from Muharram. Muharram, which is the first Islamic month, goes all the way through until Dhul Hijjah. Now the thing is that even though we follow the lunar calendar is Allah's, the solar is Allah's, January is Allah's, Muharram is Allah's, December is Allah's, Dhul Hijjah is Allah's, Jumu'ah is Allah's, Friday is Allah's. So whatever we want to call it, it all belongs to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala anyway. But as a Muslim, we should be a bit acquainted with some of the things in Islam, specifically around these occasions. Unfortunately, where we have a lack of belief, it gives a gate open for incorrect belief. Let me say that again. Where we have a lack of knowledge, a lack of belief, it gives an opportunity for incorrect things to come in. Now, I don't want to put anyone on the spot again, and I was joking about the 12-month thing. I wouldn't do that in public because you'd make people feel uncomfortable. But let's ask honestly, we're now in the month of Muharram. Why is Muharram given status in Islam? Why is it that Muharram has been afforded the position it has, and more so on the 10th of Muharram? Why? If you ask a general question to people predominantly from the subcontinent, when I mean subcontinent, I'm referring to Afghanistan, India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, all the way down, even in Sri Lanka as well, perhaps. If you ask people, why is it Muharram is revered, honored, and looked up to in comparison to other months, and more so the 10th of Muharram, a lot of people will give this answer is because of what? The shahada of Hussein radiallahu ta'ala anhu. But then the question arises, and let me not belittle that in any way, shape or form. It's a very sad part of history. But it occurred in the 61 year of Hijri, 50 years after Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam passed away. Do you understand? So there are many, many things that happened before this. If in the time of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, he himself was fasting in the month of Muharram as well, but more so on the 10th of Muharram. What is it that gives it its position? What is it that gives it its status? Now the reality is, Ibn Kathir and other scholars who we look up to as the Salaf al-Salihin, they've given different opinions, but the reality is, you ain't got no dalil. So you can't start pulling out your own back pocket and say, yeah, this is why Muharram is. The reality is only Allah knows. Why is, for example, now Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, and Muharram, and then Rajab, these are 4 months which are known as the Ashhurul Hurum, the 4 sacred months. Why? The reality is, only Allah really knows best why He chose these 4 months over other months. But there's a hadith where Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions, As-sanatu ithna ashara shahra. There's undoubtedly that a year consists of 12 months, minha arba'atun hurum, but there are 4 months within those 12 months that are sacred. Dhul Qa'dah, Dhul Hijjah, and Muharram. These follow one another. So it's the 11th, the 12th, and the 1st. These months, he mentions that ثلاث منهم متواليات. So they're one after the other. وَالرَّجَبْ مُضَرْ الَّذِي بَيْنَ جُمَعَدَيْ وَشَعْبَانِ. And Rajab is between Jamad al-Ula, Jamad al-Ukhra, and Sha'ban. Now that should click in our minds. I should know, Bumi, I know where it is. But the reality is, we have to then explain. After Muharram, 6 months down the line, then it's Rajab. So why did Allah give you this position? The reality is, Allah never said nothing in the Quran. Nothing is found in authentic ahadith. So we don't really know for sure why it's Ashhur al-Hurum. But we do know this much, is that deeds in these months are liked more by Allah in comparison to other months. We find things within the ahadith which encourage us to do more or extra a'mal. I mean, take the example of Dhul Hijjah. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned that in these 10 days, Amul Salih, good deeds are loved more by Allah in these 10 days than any other days of the year, except for Ramadan, of course. So you have Ramadan, the first 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, the whole, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam mentioned, أفضل الصيام بعد رمضان شهر الله المحرم. After the month of Ramadan, in terms of the whole month as a whole for fasting, there's nothing better than the month of Muharram. So you have all these different dates. Why? Only Allah really knows best. Incorrect belief, we have to make Islam, we have to correct. And look, I'm not here to start gunning Shia and battering people, but we're tired of these bayans. Because they're not productive. But as Muslims, we should have the right to correct our own understanding. What is right, what is wrong. And this much I can say 100% for sure. There's no doubt about it, and we're not apologetic in any way, shape or form. But it's got absolutely nothing to do with the Shahada of Hussein radiallahu anhu. Let me reiterate and say it again. It's a sad part of history, a very sorrow and gloomy part of history, that Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, his own grandson, bichara, was absolutely mercilessly martyred. How it happened, what happened, all the riwayat we have are based on history. So even we can't even say for 100% sure exactly what happened. Because history riwayat, they're not as the same caliber as ahadith. Remember, what is a hadith? When we read say we pick up Tabari, which is a book on history, and we read it, we think, like for example, I can quote you some words now from Mutanabbi. Mutanabbi is a poet who claimed prophethood. He's not Muslim, of course not. He's a poet that claimed prophethood. I can mention some riwayat from him, some stories he's mentioned. You say, Subhanallah, Maulana said, I could say it's from Bukhari. How would you know? The reality is a lot of people don't know. Until we don't study a little bit, then you'll pick up, hold on a second. He just said, Mutanabbi, where are you coming from? So you see people clock onto these things. So with history, if I were to say, yeah, it says this in Tabari, it says this in Tarikh ibn Khaldun, it says this in Tarikh Dimashq, it says this in... Bro, that doesn't mean nothing. Because you're bringing out riwayat from history which don't have the same strength as ahadith. Nevertheless, as we do understand, is that it's nothing based at all upon the shahada of Hussein radiallahu ta'ala anhu, but rather if you look and it gives you some basis for why it is, and inshallah I'll narrate that in the few minutes which we have. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned that there's a hadith from Aisha radiallahu anha. She said that the Quraysh used to fast this in the time of Jahiliyyah. The Quraysh used to fast this anyway. It was something that historically they did. Why? Even they didn't even know. It was just something because they had some remnants from Ibrahim and Ismail alayhi salam. Some remnants were left over. They were practicing upon those. Like Hajj, for example. Like Umrah, for example. So they had some things that were left over and they were practicing upon these things. Going further, when Rasul sallallahu alayhi wasallam, he moved to Medina, he would still fast. He mentioned, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم صام يوم عاشوراء وأمر بصيامه. He used to fast himself, and he would tell his Sahaba radiallahu anhum, you also should fast as well. Aisha radiallahu anha, she mentions another hadith, or after this, she mentioned, لما فرض رمضان فمن كان من شاء أفطر ومن شاء صام ومن شاء أفطر. Once Ramadan had become fard, and these are all ahadith, authentic ahadith, hadith from Muslim. She said, radiallahu anha, after Ramadan had become fard, which was in which year? Does anyone know? The second year of Hijri. So when the Muslims moved and migrated to Medina, after 2 years, then Ramadan became fard. Up until that point, Rasulullah used to tell the Sahaba, fast on the 10th of Muharram. Many years passed in Medina, many years. And even though at that time in Medina you had the likes of Ahlul Khaybar, which were the predominant living Jews of the time, and you had Banu Qurayza, Banu Nazir, and also Banu Qaynuqa'. These were 3 Jewish tribes. They lived within Madinatul Munawwara. And what happened with them guys is that Rasulullah saw some of the people of Khaybar towards the latter part of his Madani life, and he saw them, and they were fasting on the day of fasting on the day of Ashura. But the thing is though, it wasn't just the fast. Because if I'm fasting, how can you tell I'm fasting or not? Just by looking at someone, can you tell? You can't. But what they used to do, additionally, it mentioned in this hadith, it can be found in the Mu'tabar and authentic books of our hadith, where it mentioned that what they used to do is that they used to make this day like Eid and a day of celebration. And they would get their women dressed up in jewelry, and they would make it like a proper function. And Rasulullah saw this and asked them, what are you doing? And then they said, well, this was the day Musa alayhi salam saved us from Fir'aun, and we fast and we celebrate in thanks of that day. And then he turned to the Sahaba, he mentioned that Musa alayhi salam, antum awla bi Musa minhum. In actual fact, you people are more closer and more deserving of Musa alayhi salam than these individuals. So if anything, you should be fasting more. And then what did he say after that? He mentioned, La in baqitu ila qabil la asumunna tasi'a. If I'm alive to the next year, I'm even going to fast on the 9th as well. Rawahu Muslim. If I'm alive the next year, I'm going to also fast on the 9th. And he even mentioned as well, Khaliful Yahud, sumu qablahu yawman aw ba'dahu yawman. Whatever you do, just be different in terms of religious things from another religion. Fast on the 9th or even fast on the 11th. But do you understand what I've just said? He said himself, I'll fast on the 9th. But he also gave that leeway as well. He goes that just be different in any way in terms of religion. So rather fast the day before or rather fast the day after. Why? Because antum awla bi Musa minhum. Because in actual fact, you're more closer and deserving of Musa than the people who claim to be following Musa. So this is something which we have as some form of evidence and some form of dalil. If you look throughout the Islamic history, you find people like Hamza radiallahu ta'ala anhu, how mercilessly he was martyred on the day of Uhud. Very, very, wallahi, very sad part of history. Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, martyred. Uthman radiallahu ta'ala anhu, martyred. Ali radiallahu ta'ala anhu, martyred. But our history is full of shuhada and people who made mujahada. Are we people now of perpetual gham and perpetual sadness and go to that extent where we even start harming ourselves? This is where we draw the line and we say, no, hold on a second. Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentioned Umar fil Jannah, Uthman fil Jannah, Ali fil Jannah, and subhanAllah, all these great Sahaba radiallahu anhum ajma'een. For you to hold a situation many years afterwards and hold on to that, we say this is where unfortunately facts have gone mixed and misconstrued and they've gone a bit upside down. However, we still reiterate the point that it's a sad part of history, but we don't base any particular action on this day. Rather, what Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam told his Sahaba was sumu, fast. Keep a fast. It's optional, but you can do it. It's better than not doing nothing, I suppose. But if you do, fast a day before and a day after. I've got a couple of minutes left, but there's one nuqta which I really wanted to share, and this is really the crux of what I really wanted to talk about, but time didn't really permit. And that is this. In special occasions, for example, Rasulullah had this occasion here. They could have gathered and in the name of Ashura, like we have some Muslims nowadays, subhanAllah, they distribute gifts and so on. This isn't something which is from Islam. Now some people say, Mawlana, what's the harm of it? What's the haraj? Well, I'll tell you what, Mawlana Sahib inshallah, jab aap Jummah par hayenge na, when you do Jummah, do 5 rakats inshallah. What's the haraj? Well, let's go a step further. Well, let's do 20. Well, what's the haraj? Let's take it a step further. Mawlana, let's stay here till Fajr inshallah. Who's ready inshallah? Tashkeel yourselves. Our deen is not based on aql. Our deen is based on a tradition where we follow ahadith and riwayat, things which have some basis within Islam. It's not just, I think this sounds good, because what your mi'yar and your understanding of good, mine may not be that. Someone's mi'yar of good may be, well, in actual fact, man, I get on with it. I want to go and do 1 rakat and get back to job. I've got to go Heathrow, I've got a £50, £60 job to do. Some people's mi'yar might be that, some people's level might be more, some people might be less. Some people say, I tell you what, do the khutbah, Allah khair salah, let's call it a day. Mate, this is not the pick and mix at Woolworths or Asda where we just pick and choose what we like. It is what it is. If you like what it is, say alhamdulillah. If you don't, that's your issue with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But we as Muslims, it's not for us to kind of, break things up and say, well, I think this sounds good and that sounds good. We have to base things on our... Otherwise, deen is open to interpretation for every Tom, Dick and Harry. And that's not what our religion and deen is about. But as I mentioned, going further, this one last thing, one nuqta I wanted to point out, was whenever there was a special occasion, Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam never did something which would disobey Allah. Even, he was born himself on a Monday. Okay? He used to fast on his birthday, to so-called birthday. When we think of birthday, we're thinking of a birthday cake and everyone clapping hands and happy birthday and someone blowing out candles. Subhanallah. And then people, they latch onto these things so hard and they just don't want to budge from this. Where did these creep into this ummah? Wallahu alam. But it didn't come from Islam. Rather, what happened is when we're living... don't forget that the English were in India since the 1600s. So we picked up a lot of things from there. Like a lot of Muslims picked up a lot of things from the Hindus. But there are some things which we do. We don't think about it. We think it's okay. Within certain boundaries, perhaps certain things possibly could be. But however, this thing here, whenever we have a certain special day in Islam, what did Rasulullah teach us? Do ibadah. On the day of Arafah, the best day of the year, what did he teach us? Fast. Do dhikrullah. Make tawbah and istighfar. What did he do on the 10th of Muharram? You fast. What do you do on the Laylatul Qadr? Ask for tawbah, make istighfar. Not just one night, throughout the whole of the last 10 nights. He mentioned, what did he used to do? He used to shadd al-miqzar. He used to tie his lower garment, full mujahada, and make loads of ibadah. In Ramadan, he would constantly submerge himself in ibadah. Now, how do we do that? He saw the Yahud at that time, they would dress up their women, and he said, no, let's fast. We have to move away from this thing. And this is the khatra, and this is the danger which unfortunately Muslims fall into. We always say, what's the harm? What's the harm doing such a thing? Right, if you want to safeguard your deen, then you have to be very particular to only do those things which there's no doubt in as well. As I mentioned, where are you going to take this thing? What's the harm? Let's take it even further. I gave you the example of the salah. How ludicrous does it sound? But that sounds ludicrous. But when something else occurs, we say, no, that's okay. What's the harm? The harm is that then it opens door for innovations to creep in. Everything new, there's an Arabic saying, كُلُّ جَدِيدٍ لَذِيذٍ. Every new thing is tasty. That's why certain people who have shops, they'll know, time to time you have to update your menus. Say this, now the new panini is going to have super hot peri-peri sauce. Oh, mashallah, new. But you just change the sauce, but you've got to keep the customers on the toes. So now we're using extra special. Today with the kanji we're going to make, sheep is going to come inshallah from this place. We're going to use special mutton from the hills of Corona. We're going to use special thing. It is what it is. We don't have to keep on bringing new things to attract people. Deen is already, it's got its natural beauty and its natural attraction when it's followed how Rasulullah followed it. So I'll finish off on this point. As I mentioned, this is a whole topic in itself. I haven't really done justice, and I can actually, Salah is supposed to be earlier today as well, so I'll terminate on this. My objective of mentioning what I have today is summed up in two things. Number one, our religion is based on a tradition where we take from sources. And when I mean sources, I mean traditions. Tradition in Islam, ahadith, Quran, and so on. And second thing is, when we have certain special occasions, the way to give position to those, or authority to those, is by bringing ibadah into those. So for example, now when it is, say, someone's birthday, why not do something like this where people do more ibadah? People think, you told that to people, they'd think you're backwards. They think you've lost the plot. But I say this, instead of giving children the lalach and the greed all the time and say, when is your birthday, I'm going to buy you an iPad. Look, scrap that. Say to the child this, when it's Eid, I'll buy you double things. You can have the choice. So naturally you're grooming that child to think that when it's Eid, I get something decent. But let's be honest and ask, right, what did you do for your kid for Eid? Perhaps someone palmed someone off with a tenner. Someone palmed someone off. And Allah Ma'afman, there's another thing as well. People give money to their kids and they say, Gee, give me the money. This is an awful thing, right? But if someone gives a kid money, then they take it off their own child and they say, well, you know, when their happiness, we have to give £20 back, so I have to keep hold of this myself. Subhanallah, what deen is this? What Islam is this? Khair, these are things, inshallah, like I said, this time doesn't permit me to carry on, I have to finish here. But may Allah Ta'ala give us the tawfiq and the ability to practice on the khair which I've mentioned. This Monday is going to be the 9th of Muharram anyway. If you look at it, the Monday, the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to fast on a Monday anyway. But then you have Tuesday, which is the 10th, Wednesday, which is the 11th, Thursday, Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam used to fast on a Thursday anyway, and then Friday, Saturday and Sunday are the 13th, 14th and 15th of Muharram, which he used to fast as well. And then you've got Monday again. So if you really wanted to fast, you could fast from Monday all the way till next Monday. Inshallah, you'll get plenty of ajr for that. So may Allah give us the tawfiq to do those things. By distributing plates of chawal and sharbat and these things have got no basis within Islam at all. Man wassa'a ala iyalihi yawma ashura wassa'a Allahu alayhi sa'ira sana. There's a hadith, and it's not an even authentic hadith as well. It's a weak hadith. But because it's narrated by different sahaba, the rule is كثرة الطرق, it becomes hasan li ghayrihi. For those of you who want a bit of technicality for their Jumu'ah, hear that. So it's not an innovation, it's not, but what does it mention? Wassa'a, tawsi'. They spend more than usual. So if your normal food is something, you just give something a little bit extra. People putting up Ashura trees and putting up lights, subhanallah, it is well that's gone. So rather keep within what Allah's Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam told us, and with that thing in mind, if I do that thing which is correct and hopeful from Allah, Allah Ta'ala will give more. So khair, this Jumu'ah has been just to elaborate on these things. May Allah Ta'ala give us the tawfiq to act on the khair which I've said. Anything incorrect, or perhaps anything which was out of my forte, I ask Allah Ta'ala for forgiveness. And we ask Allah Ta'ala for istiqamah and tathbeet and steadfastness, and for us to live as Muslims and die as Muslims and take this deen unto others, authentic khalis deen as well, inshallah. Wa akhira da'wana alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wa sallallahu ta'ala ala nabiyyina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in.